y'all, welcome back. We're back for a second session about the church. Last time we unpacked how the church is the family of God. And today we're going to talk about how we are salt and light and what that means.
Exactly. It's like being a part of this family comes with a mission. We're not just gathered to feel good, we exist to do good.
The early church didn't just meet up for the sake of it. They were driven by the radical idea of sharing Jesus' love, not just among themselves, but everywhere.
That's right. The first Christians were fueled by genuine love and the message of hope. So let's get back into another conversation I had with Atsu to talk about the church as salt and light.
And by this point, you guys already know discussion breaks are coming. Let's get to it.
Atsu, I'm curious, if I gave you $1 million that you had to give away or use to solve a problem, what would you focus on and why?
Okay, well, I think with how expensive everything has gone, I'm probably going to need more than $1 million.
Okay, 10 million. What would you do with it?
Okay, well, I think for me, we'd probably have to do something with making everything less expensive. I just think with where we live and with inflation, things have gotten so expensive and it makes it really tough for families to make ends meet.
Yes, it's the worst, and I've been there. So I say, let's get you that money.
That would be sweet.
The word church is translated from the Greek term ekklesia. Interestingly, it wasn't originally a religious word and it never referred to a building. Ekklesia, or church, was a gathering of citizens in a city to conduct civic business, kind of like a city council. Jesus' disciples would have thought about ekklesia as a word that was used in their day for how Caesar would establish city gatherings that existed as outposts of his rule. So Jesus, the true ruler, also sets up gatherings, or ekklesias, as outposts of his kingdom. And as members of these Jesus ekklesias, we are called to embody and establish a different kind of kingdom, one of love, justice, and compassion that works for the good of all. Jesus told his disciples, "You are the light of the world, and you are the salt of the earth." Salt in those days was not only used to add flavor, but also to preserve food from going bad. As Jesus' disciples, we're meant to be a preserving agent in the world, both adding flavor and bringing light to dark places. Pastor and author Daryl Johnson puts it this way: when a room goes dark, you don't blame the room. You ask, where was the light? When a fish goes bad, you don't blame the fish. You ask, where was the salt? And when a city is in shambles, you don't blame the city. You ask, where was the church? In John 13, on the night he was betrayed, Jesus washes his disciples' feet. In the middle of the meal, Jesus got up, wrapped a towel around his waist, and filled a basin with water. Then he knelt and washed each of his disciples' feet one by one. This was something a household servant would have typically done.
Okay, so I do remember that story, but I never really pictured it just because foot washing is not really something we would see today. But okay, so there's Jesus the rabbi washing their feet, and I think it just seems so backwards.
Yeah, Peter's reaction is what you'd expect. He said to Jesus, "You shall never wash my feet."
I feel like I would probably say the same thing, just because I can't imagine a world where, Jesus, the Son of God, would do such a thing for me either. But I'm trying to imagine what the equivalent would be to today. It could be maybe like a superstar or CEO or some other celebrity being willing to serve people and take care of people.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's hard to imagine a modern-day celebrity doing something like this, but Jesus' life was marked by self-sacrifice. He once said, "I did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give my life as a ransom for many." And when he finished washing their feet, he told them, "You should do as I have done for you," as if to say, this is what you should be known for. In the book of Philippians, St. Paul writes that Jesus made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross.
It really does change the way you think about God. Like, God isn't just this faraway thing in the sky not caring, but God is willing to get down low and take care of people.
Exactly. Jesus didn't just talk about serving others, he lived it to the fullest extent possible by displaying self-sacrificial love. And we, the church, the ekklesia, are called to serve others with self-sacrificial love too. Saint Teresa of Avila wrote, "Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours." Seeing and showing up to the needs of others, no matter how inconvenient or challenging, is part of what it means to be the light of the world. The church has always had a special emphasis on caring for the poor. In Galatians 2:10, Paul and Barnabas were told, "Remember the poor." And also, Jesus told his followers, "Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops described why the Catholic Church will continue to have a special emphasis on caring for those of us who are poor. The primary purpose of this special commitment to the poor is to enable them to become active participants in the life of society. It is to enable all persons to share in and contribute to the common good. The deprivation and powerlessness of the poor wounds the whole community.
It's true. I mean, sometimes we just need help to get on our feet, and then down the road, we can hopefully do the same for other people.
Yeah, Jesus' character and posture toward the poor and oppressed have been reflected in the church throughout its history. In the first 3 centuries, the church was known for its ruthless generosity, for seeing and meeting a need with compassion, going all out to dignify those in need, and to not elevate themselves above them. And throughout history, Christians have contributed a lot to helping the impoverished, sick, and the uneducated. In the early church, the Roman Empire was hit hard by what many call the Plague of Galen, where hundreds died daily. Yet many Christians stepped in to provide food and drink for both sick Christians and non-Christians, even when no one else would. Catherine and William Booth founded the Salvation Army, which is known for its homeless shelters, food distribution networks, and addiction recovery care worldwide. Dorothy Day set up the Catholic worker movement to combat poverty, homelessness, and worker exploitation in the wake of the Great Depression. St. Oscar Romero dedicated his life to advocating for the rights and dignity of the poor and marginalized in El Salvador, speaking out against injustice and oppression, even at the cost of his own life. Stories like these are inspiring and challenging, and I recently learned some stats that Christians in the U.S. contribute more in financial aid annually than the government to help alleviate global suffering. We give around $44 billion compared to the government's $33 billion. Asylum seekers and refugee resettlement agencies are almost exclusively faith-based organizations. Christian people provide the bulk of volunteer care for incarcerated people and families.
Okay, so pretty much salt and light in action.
Exactly. All of these examples give us pictures of what it looks like for the church to care for the world and establish the kingdom of God. We're the ekklesia, remember that. We're the citizens of God's kingdom, and we're bringing that kingdom and all its goodness to the world around us as we serve and give and speak up for what's right. We're salt and light.
I know this has a lot to do with being generous with what you have, but if I'm being honest, sometimes I feel like I don't really have much to give, considering that I'm still pretty young and it's not like I have a ton of money or experience to give away. And my friends and I were actually talking about this the other day, and I was reminded of the story in the Bible where, the kid had some bread and fish, and he gave it to Jesus to feed the crowd. And the thing is, it definitely was not enough to feed the crowd of hungry people, but Jesus took the lunch and multiplied it to feed everyone. And I feel like this story encourages us to give, even if it's something small.
I love that. That's a good word. Give what you have. We each play a different part and have different gifts and resources to share. The last thing Jesus told his followers was, "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. The key responsibilities that Jesus gave his followers, then and now, is to make disciples. Sharing the good news about Jesus and the arrival of his kingdom is the first step. Many call this evangelization or evangelism, which goes back to the Greek word euangelion, which means good news or gospel. This is another term that wasn't originally religious. It was a word used throughout the Roman Empire to proclaim Caesar's military victories. It was an announcement that all was well within the empire. But for Jesus' disciples, the truly good news is that Jesus is back from the dead and everything has changed because of it.
Man, I love that because personally, when I think about telling my friends about Jesus, I think I have some of those normal worries like, what if they reject me? What if I offend them? Or what if they ask something and I just don't know how to answer it?
I empathize with that 100%. Yet a powerful demonstration of the gospel is to serve your friends and community as Jesus would. Jesus said, "Let your light shine before others, that they will see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Making disciples includes conversations about Jesus, yet it also includes living in a way that backs up our words about Jesus' transformation of us. Our lives are signposts to what he's done for us and what he's shaping in us. What does it look like for you?
In that summer, I had a moment at camp where I just had this realization that I didn't want to leave this big part of my life out at school. I didn't want to wear a mask just so I could fit in, and so I came back to school the next year and I tried to be open about talking about God and my faith. And a big moment for me was actually inviting a couple of my friends to youth group on a Friday night and not really knowing how they would react, and thankfully they had a good time. Another time, I was putting up posters around school for a discussion group about God that we had on Wednesdays at lunch or whatever it was, and I remember it felt slightly embarrassing. Like I didn't know if people would see me doing it and what they would think, but I'm glad I did it.
See, that's what I'm talking about, bro. Telling people about the good news about Jesus takes courage, and sometimes it takes sacrifice.
Well, I'm not sure. Everyone gets offensive when it goes about religions.
In order to talk to someone, you really just have to be more open, be more human.
People have issues with stepping outside of their comfort zone.
Everybody has preconceived notions when you say the word religion or spirituality. So it's so personal, no one really will get it if you speak about it.
It's about being open-minded.
You never know how other people, when you talk about religion, how other people are going to respond to your beliefs, you know?
It's not so nice to hear perspectives that conflict with something that's such a big part of your identity.
It's difficult for some people because of the way some people are brought up, you know what I'm saying? Some people are forced to believe certain things.
I think it's all kind of about perspective, and I think a lot of people just don't know and they're not willing to learn and look outside of themselves of, this is what I believe, but it's not maybe what everyone else believes, and that's okay.
If you and your friend have different beliefs, you don't want that to affect the friendship, so maybe it's better to just not talk about it.
I feel like a lot of people get frustrated when they can't make someone else see their point.
People feel like they might get judged, kind of persecuted for what they believe in.
I think it's just fear of being judged, really. Yeah.
A lot of the times people that want to share Jesus kind of come off as a little bit, I guess, intimidating to some people. So I guess if the church could find a way that's a little bit more open.
If you're mature, you have that respect to be like, okay, I see, I don't agree with you, but I respect your opinion. If that's what you believe in, then go for it.
In the last series, we discussed prayer as communication and connection to God, and we especially looked at how it benefits us personally. But another side of prayer is praying for others, also known as interceding for them. Simply put, interceding is asking God to intervene in the life of another person or a community. And throughout Jesus' ministry, he taught that our prayers to God can shape the world around us. But many of us aren't praying those sort of big prayers.
That actually makes a ton of sense. I've been interceding for some time now for different people in my life, even if I didn't call it that. The person I pray for the most is my mom. Over the years, she's had a lot of health complications, so I try to pray for her as much as I can, and I found myself praying just before I go to sleep. Also, recently, my friend Ben told me that every time he pulls out his keys to get in the door at home, he uses that as a reminder to pray.
Nice, I like that. Yeah, it's sometimes helpful to plan to pray at the same time and place every day, or to set a daily alarm to remind us. In the New Testament, we see that as the apostles moved across the known world making disciples, it was a habit for them that when they were confronted with suffering, they prayed. If you read the letters of St. Paul, nearly every letter includes a prayer for the church in that city. From their time up until our present day, prayer is still one of the best ways to respond to things that we see and experience that are out of alignment with the harmony God desires for us.
And the more that we pray, I feel like I get a small idea of what God feels and sees in the world around me. I care more about the people and situations I pray for.
I love that, man. The church's mission involves actions, words, and prayer. Caring for the poor and sharing the gospel aren't separate tasks, but intertwined parts of our identity as disciples of Jesus. It's about embodying the gospel in everything we do, whether we're offering support to someone facing hard times or talking about our faith journey. It's all about making God's love visible.
Yeah, I see that. And it brings to mind the saying, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. It's about being salt and light for the world.
Yeah, Will Willimon said, the most eloquent testimony to the reality of the resurrection is not an empty tomb or a well-orchestrated pageant on Easter Sunday, but rather a group of people whose life together is so radically different, so completely changed from the way the world builds a community, that there can be no explanation other than that something decisive has happened in history.
As the church, we're called to care for each other, and we're called to serve the world in words and action.
And to wrap things up today, we want to invite you to take a few minutes to talk about ways you can make a real impact in your community. What's your mission? Find local organizations that are extending help and care to those in need.
Think shelters, service for the houseless, programs supporting women and children, or places that provide food assistance. A great place to start is checking out their mission and values. See what they're all about and how they do what they do.
And then the next step is to look into what it could look like for your group to join forces with one of these organizations. Take the initiative and reach out to them and see how you can help. Before you leave today, get the first steps of a plan together.
Remember, serving others is at the core of what it means to follow Jesus. Just as Jesus showed us, we're called to love and serve others selflessly. The church isn't just for us, but for the sake of the world. As we care for those in need and share the hope of the gospel, we all have the chance to experience God's love.
So as we close this session, we want to remind you that we're not doing this alone. We're partnering in what God is already doing around us. A big part of joining in is paying attention to where there's a need and being willing to respond. And one of the best ways to grow in our awareness of God and the needs around us is to pray. Maybe one last thing you could do before you leave today is to set an alarm or a reminder to pause and pray at different moments each day. All right, we'll catch you in the next session.
See you soon.